Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of Financial Freedom Secrets. And I'm really excited about this particular episode as we've been working behind the scenes to do some research to particularly support franchisees in the home services and the trade space, because there's many people out there that are doing it tough, but there's also plenty out there that are doing it amazing and really crushing their goals. I wanted to take this opportunity to interview some experts in the space to be able to share their genius, their financial freedom secrets to help you guys win in this day and age, to make sure that you can use your business as a platform to create financial freedom faster. So I'm joined here today with Rhiannon Simcocks from James's Home Services. It's a franchise group that's been around for a very long time, and I'm looking forward to sharing her genius, the collective genius of the group, and helping you guys kick some more goals in 2022 and beyond. So Rhiannon, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, really well. Thank you so much for having me, Jackson.
So we actually live in the same neck of the woods, which is typically very surprising. We're up in far north Queensland. We're just having a bit of a chat offline. What was the story that brought you up to the beautiful tropics?
Oh, like so many other stories, my partner and I are originally from Victoria. We've been living and working down there our entire lives. We wanted a little bit more opportunity. We were living in a regional town out west. We were young in our careers and wanted something that would give us a bit more opportunity. So we were headed for a regional centre. We holidayed in Cairns and it was beautiful. We landed here in August, beautiful, stunning, sunny, blue sky days. We had taken off in, 5 degrees and landed into 25 degrees. And we thought, oh my goodness, how long has this been going on for? So when it came time to make a decision to actually move somewhere else, what was next for us, we took a dart and aimed at the map, but we aimed really high and secretly hoped it landed near Cairns. And we skewed it well because it landed near Cairns, and here we are.
I love it. Fantastic. Okay, I think it seems like you did all of this kind of pre-COVID, but it seems like there's been a lot of professionals like ourselves that have done this kind of sea and tree change up north. It's a beautiful part of the world. So I'm glad we share that in common. So for those who don't know you and the James Home Services business, tell us a little bit about the story. Let's talk about your origin story first, Rhiannon.
Yeah, my origins, they're pretty modest. It's pretty straightforward. I am off a farm in country Victoria. My parents are farmers. We're fourth generation, and I grew up and I went to school. We lived a very modest life. My parents did modest things, but I always knew through school that I wanted to be a leader of some description. I had some pretty big aspirations for what I wanted to achieve. And, I went to uni and I studied things and I did a few U-turns and I flipped out of things and then I moved into other things. And, my friends and family got nervous that I wasn't making a decision and settling down. And I just sort of thought, you know what, it'll happen when it happens, as long as I just keep taking steps forward. And, I ended up studying business and marketing. And then I went and got a job in a law firm and thought I wanted to be a commercial litigator for a while. 3 years working in a law firm, determined that my strengths were not suited to commercial litigation. So I backflipped again and I jumped into the world of small business management. And also the world of business consulting and regional economic development up here in Cairns. And it really was there that I found my feet and my passion, and the light bulb went on and things started to fall into place and things started to click for me. And all of a sudden I was working with small business owners on a daily basis. And sometimes we're working on really big picture goals, some really game-changing and innovative stuff that, you're really excited to jump out of bed for. And other days we were working on the basics, basic financial understanding and building that basic understanding of, the business 101 stuff. Know your customers, know your market, know what your bank account is telling you, know what that P&L says to you. That also I found it got me out of bed with just as much excitement as the big picture stuff. In between jobs when COVID hit and I landed on my feet, I got introduced to somebody who was in the process of looking at purchasing the James Home Services Australia franchise network. And I ended up being part of the team that did the due diligence on the business.
Wow.
It's a business with 30 years of history in Australia. And it's a really interesting scenario because the founder was an incredibly astute businessman. He set this franchise network up right. Even 30 years on, the bones and the foundations that he established, you can tell just the magnitude of investment that he put into them. However, things change, consumers change, market changes, what people want out of life, out of their business, it changes. And if you don't update and change, you risk becoming irrelevant. And, previous owners had forgotten to listen to the market and to adapt and change. So what we found in due diligence was that it was a wonderfully trusted and respected business and brand in Australia, but it needed a little bit of refreshing. So we've spent the last 2 years doing exactly that.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Wow. What an amazing journey. I love small business. I think what's really interesting about what you've spoken about is the bringing of the kind of the big business strategy of the management consulting, which is traditionally reserved for big multinational companies, right? And boiling that down to small business 101 principles. I think one of the interesting things is that just because you're a good technician, you're good at what you do, doesn't necessarily make you a good business person. And so it's amazing how you've brought these worlds together, which is like a testament to the success. So let's talk a little bit about the James brand. What exactly does James do for those who maybe aren't familiar with the name?
Yeah, James Home Services is a franchise network and we specialise in delivering professional home services. So you'll mostly be familiar with things like interior cleaning services or lawn and garden care services. We also provide things like exterior cleaning and maintenance services, window cleaning, car cleaning, pet grooming, those sorts of things. But fundamentally, our focus is interior cleaning and lawn and garden care, and that's what we do. Obviously, a franchise network by design has two streams that fundamentally we must all understand. And one of the things that head office is responsible for is obviously developing the systems and the processes that create the business and then sell those businesses to individuals to operate the businesses. That's fundamentally a role at head office. The second stream to what we do at head office, obviously, is then what I see is the most important part, which is providing support, training, mentoring, backup, being a handholder when required, being a little gentle push when required, all of the things. And that's exactly what you should be expecting out of a franchise network. So the franchise network itself isn't out there delivering the services, but we empower everyday Australians, ordinary mums and dads, to do that for themselves under our brand, under our model, and with all of our support.
Beautiful. I love that. Fantastic. I'm lucky enough to have been part of a franchise in the past. I know many people, we've got many clients who've operated in franchises, and there really seems to be a contrast of two very different experiences. Those who work in a franchise group that is amazing, very supportive, that very much upholds the promise that they made when they came in and they acquired their business. And basically, they've got a business in a box, right? They haven't to recreate the wheel. They can step into a proven system, proven model, and basically hit the ground running, assuming they're prepared to do the hard work. And then on the other side, there's some stories, and I'm sure you've heard of them, of the smoke and mirrors, right? They get sold the dream, they get delivered very little, and they're basically just thrown straight into the deep end, often with a pretty hefty upfront cost associated with getting in. So from your perspective, Rhiannon, what makes a great franchise offering to somebody who's maybe looking to get into a franchise?
Yeah, and I love this question. I love that you've taken us there already, Jackson. It is the elephant, the rhinoceros, the hippo. It's all of the things in the corner of the room, right? Every single room I'm ever in, all of those massive animals sitting in the corner of it. It's on everybody's lips, right? We've all heard the horror stories. And I'll share something with you. 2 years ago, when I sat down in front of my new employer who was looking at purchasing this network, I said to him on day one, okay, look, all right, we kind of talked at a high level about what my role would be, but okay, now we're day one, so what do you want me doing? And he said, well, I'm thinking about buying a national franchise network. We're putting together a team to do due diligence. I had previous experience in running due diligence processes as a business consultant, so this was not new territory for me. And he said, so we might put you together as part of that team. My initial response was, oh, franchising, is that something I really want to go near? I don't really know if that aligns with my morals and ethics, because I was one of those people. I had heard the horror stories, the third, fourth, fifth hand backyard barbecue swapped horror stories. That's the only ever experience I'd had, and it was so far removed from probably the truth of the situation, it wasn't even funny, right? So yeah, let's go there. Let's have this conversation. There's a handful. the smoke and mirrors, right? And who don't make the greatest choices in how they operate their networks. Having said that, that goes in any industry, in any company,
Yes.
in any structure, right? It's everywhere. What should you be looking for in a good franchise? Not just a sales pitch. Those are easy, right? You can construct an excellent sales pitch. I've heard 1,000 of them. And over the years, I've become very good at distinguishing the legitimate ones from the ones that are just bullshit, because there's plenty of those out there. And not just in franchising and everything, right?
Yes.
You have to actually pull the intelligence out of the sales pitch that you're getting and distill that and do your own due diligence. You need to look for transparency in the network. You need to look for a network that's really comfortable to introduce you to their own people, their own teams, their own franchisees. And we do that. We introduce you to our franchisees. We let you speak to them. We give you their phone numbers. We let you call them because we've got nothing to hide. What else should you look for? You should look for being able to build a relationship with that person that's walking you through the process as a potential franchisee. And it shouldn't be a quick process. It shouldn't be, go here, sign this, fill in this application, do this, and then, hey, presto, bam, we've got a business ready for you. It should take time. It should be a well set out, considered process. You should understand at all times where you sit in that process. You should understand at all times the obligations that we have to you as a potential franchisee, but also that you have to us in the process, because for us, it's a two-way street. As much as we need our potential franchisees to be doing their due diligence on us and making sure that we pass muster, we're doing it on them as well, right? Because if the wrong people get into our network, it's a headache for both sides. We're just never going to be able to meet their expectations. They're never going to be able to meet ours. And we're both going to lock heads the whole time, and that doesn't make for happy parties on either side, right? So not a good outcome. So, yeah, look, you should be looking for a franchise that, there's loads of transparency. There's loads of information publicly about what you're getting yourself into. You should look for somebody who's going to step you through that sales process and who feels genuine and authentic, and who, when you ask the hard questions, doesn't push you away. You get answers to those questions, right? And you shouldn't have to dive for them either. You should just get frank and open answers. We're all good at sniffing out bullshit. Use your gut, use your bullshit radar. It's kind of that simple. But yeah, look, there's loads of things that you can be doing to protect yourself. That due diligence is really important. Put us through our paces, make us demonstrate our money is where our mouths are.
I love that. That's great advice, Rhiannon. I think the big part here of what I'm taking out of this is that it's all about values alignment. And I'm a big believer of this in business, whether it be with business partners, strategic partners, clients. If you align with values, there's not much else you can't work out together. It's where there's not that values alignment, where you aren't on the same page, where there is ambiguity. That's where it's going to catch up with you at some point down the road. And I think this is the hard part, that there are some conflicts when because obviously franchises, they want to grow. There are certain franchises out there that only look at that from the one-dimensional perspective of getting bums on seats, and it never really works. It ultimately leads to their demise or not getting the growth that they want, and it impacts everyone because this is very much a rising tide lifts all ships, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The quickest way to bring yourself down is to try and not be authentic in what you're delivering. Yes. It starts for us from day one. We have a little bit of a saying in our network, it's not been cemented as a vision or a mission or any of those kinds of, strict planning principles. But for us, something that is said amongst our head office team almost every single day is we steer this ship with strong business acumen.
Yes.
But a tight moral compass.
Beautiful.
And I have to be honest, the business acumen is what my directors want to hear that I'm steering the ship with. The moral compass is where it actually is steered from, to be completely honest with you. And our directors are wonderful and they're on the same page, and it's a really supportive sort of environment where we are all aligned at head office, which is a fantastic thing. And I have an exemplary team who walk alongside me who also operate under this principle of a strong moral compass. And it's so necessary. It's necessary in everything in life and everything in business, but more than ever now in franchising. 20 years ago, if you said to your family or your friends, hey, I'm thinking of starting business, they would say to you, start a franchise because you'll get that support, right? It was a celebrated, revered industry, respected and held on a pedestal. If you were a franchisee in this country 20 years ago, you were respected. You had made a really savvy business decision. Nowadays, you say to your family and friends, hey, I'm going to start a business. I'm thinking maybe it's a franchise. Yeah, right. Your family and friends all of a sudden go, no. Maybe, surely you can do this alone, right? Just register an ABN, you'll be right. And it's so important that as an industry, not just as Jones Home Services Australia, not just as Rhiannon Simcocks, as an entire industry, we demonstrate that, the story of one or two is not representative of how the rest of us operate. The other 99.999% of us operate with a strong moral compass, and that's so important for us to demonstrate right from the get-go with all of our potential franchisees and our existing cohort as well. There are always tensions in relationships from time to time, and when you work alongside a franchisee for 5, 10, we have franchisees in our network who have been with us in excess of 10 years. Evidently there are tensions, or there are things that they would like, there are issues that are raised, there's feedback that they've got. And if you don't work with people authentically and transparently, you're just behind the game right from the get-go.
I love it. Fantastic. So let's flip this on its head. Now, one of the things I didn't mention, Rhiannon, is that I come from lineage of home services professionals. My mum had a number of cleaning businesses over the years. My dad had handyman businesses, waterproofing businesses, cleaning businesses. Both owner-operated, started from scratch under their own brands, and also they had some dabbles and some involvement in franchise as well. There's a formula for success in home services. And from my perspective, there is a very low barrier to entry for these kinds of things. These are the first businesses that, say, maybe people who are new entrants to Australia, or people who are frustrated with their job or their corporate careers or whatever. It's one of the first things that they step into because it has very low startup costs and it's relatively easy to get started, which comes with its own challenges. So from your experience, Rhiannon, what are the keys to success for a home services business owner, whether they be franchise or otherwise, in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah. So let's start from right at the beginning, right? You're thinking about starting your own business. Yes, it is almost barrierless in a lot of respects, but that's also a very dangerous thing to think, because if you don't take this seriously, if you don't have conviction about what you're about to step into, if you don't understand that there are literally thousands of pieces of legislation that all of a sudden apply to you when you make that switch from employee to business owner, all of a sudden there are thousands of pieces of legislation that apply to you that you are now solely responsible for understanding and complying with. If you don't take that seriously, then all of a sudden there are mammoth barriers to success in the industry. So what does success look like now and beyond? Where are the opportunities in our industry? They are everywhere right now. COVID in a lot of respects did some terrible things. We all don't need to speak about that. However, I've experienced in this industry that there are two ways for franchise networks to look at COVID, to deal with COVID. And I've attended a few conferences recently where 2 years on, we're still unpacking the challenges. And I'm sitting there frustrated in the corner going, guys, you've missed the point. You should have spent the last 18 months looking for the opportunity, right? Okay, for the first 6 months, unpack the challenges. There were plenty. It was a minefield. We all had to feel our way through it. No one had the right answers at the right time, except we had franchisees looking to us for all of those things. We all just did our best with the information that we had at the time. However, you have to switch that mindset pretty darn quickly to where's the opportunity. And the opportunity presents in the home services sector, and it did almost immediately, right? We saw V-shaped recoveries on steroids for our franchisees after lockdowns. So obviously we go into a lockdown, the cleaner can't come into your home and clean, or the family feels nervous about having a third party come into the home and clean. So we saw a lot of cancellations and postponements. And of course, our business owners got very nervous at that time. They thought that they'd lost these clients forever. And, we offered a lot of coaching and support around here's how to maintain the relationship, here's how to keep in touch, because we think that these people are going to come straight back to you as soon as they're able. And guess what? They absolutely did. And all of a sudden, our call centres and our franchisees were flooded with inquiry, people at the end of their wits, on the end of our phone saying, I have been stuck inside these same four walls for the last 8 weeks. If you think I'm going to get out of lockdown on Friday and spend my weekend cleaning my home, you got another thing coming. I'm going to be out on my boat enjoying life. All of a sudden, all of a sudden priorities were shifted around, right? We didn't want to stay indoors. We didn't want to mow the lawn. We didn't want to clean. We didn't want to do the chores. All of a sudden, we saw that our discretionary spending could cover those things and we could go out and live life. That's what COVID did for a whole bunch of consumers. That is where the opportunity is in home services, because guess what? It's home services that deliver the services that allow our customers to go and live the life they now want to live. So opportunities everywhere.
I love this. This is amazing. Yeah, I think I really see a lot of these previously what would be referred to as discretionary purchases have become non-negotiable. They've formed fixed expenses that, hey, this allows me to buy back my time and actually go and enjoy my life that was really, my freedoms were taken away from me for a period of time. So I now realize what's truly important. But this amount of scale, particularly scale that wasn't really forecasted or predicted, presents its own challenges. And we work with a lot of business owners who are six figures, mid six figures, even to seven figures who've been able to create amazing businesses. And there comes this transition where you go from being self-employed to being a business owner. And particularly with migration being turned off, staffing is another big problem. So how has the network responded to managing this amount of unprecedented inquiry and demand for their services, along with the kind of vacuum that we're in with employment and getting good people?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges. In fact, I would say, based on the feedback from our franchisees right now, getting great quality staff is the biggest challenge. We identified this 18 months ago, 2 years ago, as something that would be a pinch point for our network in the future. As soon as this demand started to come in, we knew this would be a problem. And so we started to develop bespoke resources that we could use with our franchisees to step them through, because we're essentially training them on how to employ staff, how to go through a recruitment process. You make the really important distinguishment between being an employer and being a business owner and working in that business, to being a employer and employing others to work and do the actual tasks while you take on the role of business manager. Wildly challenging transition for so many of us to take. And so many of our business owners, when they first get in touch with us as potential franchisees, their goals are, I'd love to grow this business. I'd love to be employing a team of people within a couple of years that mean that I can take on that role of business development, business manager, and take those steps up. And it's a huge challenge to actually work with someone to get them there, because it's a whole different skill set. We can teach them how to do the job. We can teach them how to manage their accounting software. We can teach them how to quote. We can teach them how to work out what their hourly charge out rate should be. We can teach them all of that stuff, right? And then it's like we get to like a second tier. It's not business 101 anymore. It's business 120. And it's How do you actually become a manager? A business manager, a manager of staff and people. How do you take care of your people like the way that we take care of you and that we want you to take care of your people? Because now they're part of our family as well, So that we built out a whole suite of resources that we use, templates and workbooks and training resources, online training, to upskill those business owners in our network who wanted to take that step. Those resources have made a huge difference, and it's empowered a lot of our franchisees to take that step to hiring somebody. And it's sort of minimised the fear about, oh my gosh, I have no idea what I'm doing in this space, right? We went in with that training and those resources and those tools, and we take out some of the unknown, some of the uncertainty. We give them answers, we give them training, we give them skills, and then all of a sudden we're standing side by side as they're walking through that recruitment process. And they're feeling empowered because they're doing it themselves, but they've got someone who's got all the right answers standing beside them. But there's no easy solution, because you still have to find the right people. And, that's a skill that HR managers work on for their entire careers, is being able to find the right people. And how do you know when you found the right person? And then you have to know how to take care of them and how to support them. It's another world entirely, right? There's loads of challenges in it. But that first step for our business owners is making sure they feel comfortable and informed and empowered enough to actually take that step and say, I'm going to hire staff. It's the right time in my business. I know I can afford it. I know that I'm ready for it. And I understand the process I need to take myself on to get there.
And that just gives them confidence, right? I think this is great to see that you guys have this part of the system, because from many franchise systems that I've seen, they don't even approach this. And it's so nerve-wracking, particularly if it's, say, maybe the first time that you've hired somebody, and making that leap from self-employment to being a real business owner in respect to building a team and creating that leverage is already daunting enough as it is. So it's great to hear. Now, I know that in my own business and with our clients, team and building a number of employees, reducing that key person risk is one way to create financial freedom. It gets us out of creating that job. I feel that in this particular space, whether it be trades, whether it be home services, financial freedom is not something that's spoken about. There's taboos around it. They're doing this as a corporate escapee to have more so freedom and flexibility around their time. But talking about financial freedom in the future is not often something that's spoken about a lot. In your experience, Rhiannon, what is the key to financial freedom as a home services business owner from your perspective?
Key to financial freedom, I mean, there's loads that goes into this, right? It starts right from the basics, which is understanding, the real basics is understanding what you need to be charging for your services, right? It comes all the way back to the start. And so many of the individuals in our network, when you come from being just an employee for your entire life, how do you know how to charge? And, when you're an employee, a certain amount of money goes into your bank account every 2 weeks. And you think, great, okay, that's excellent. All of a sudden, you're in charge of actually determining what money goes into your bank account. That is your sole responsibility. You've got to go find those customers. You've got to convince them that you're the best person to do their job or solve their problem. You've got to then actually determine what you're going to charge to them, and then you've got to follow through, do a great job, try and secure their repeat trade, and then collect money from them, right? But there's that point in the middle there, which is determining what to charge. Most people leave the tracks here, most people, because they undervalue themselves. They've been used to seeing that money go into their account. They think that that's what they're worth. And we have so many people who join the network and think, I just need to make the $1,000 a week or the $1,500 a week because that's what I was being paid previously. But hang on a minute, you own a business now. You've got expenses, right? So you've got all your business expenses and you've got your franchise fees. You need to be paying yourself a salary. You need to be paying yourself super. And then we need to talk about this very true thing, which is profit.
Yes.
And you need to be planning for profit. Let's not beat around the bush. You need to walk into every single job you show up for, understanding that today I'm servicing Rhiannon's house. I know that the service cost is $250. That's what I'm charging her. I know that X amount of that is my business expenses. I know that X amount of that is going and I'm putting that in my salary or my staff salary. But I know that $50 out of that service is clear profit. People aren't planning for profit and we need to do that, right? That's where we're going wrong. It's right back at the start. We can talk about all the opportunity in the market, the demand, taking care of customers, all of those detailed things, right? But if you aren't planning for profit, you are planning to fail.
You're talking my language. I love this. One of my mottos has always been, it's not the money that you make that matters, it's what you keep that counts. And it matters for the household as much as it matters for the business. Both are interlinked. Your ability to create financial freedom outside of your business is directly correlated to the amount of profit your business can make. So that's critically important. So aside from pricing, where do home services businesses get it wrong that maybe holds them back, that limits their growth, that gets in the way of them creating the financial freedom that maybe they're looking for?
Yeah. So we fail to understand our consumer market, right? And I think as individual business owners, particularly in a franchise network, we can kind of rest on our laurels and think that the branding and the national presence and the great big buckets of money to market with at a national level will sort of send us all the leads that we need. And look, that's true on the one hand, right? But on the other hand, it's what you do when that lead crosses your desk, when you get that notification that someone's made an inquiry and it's landed in your area. What do you do with it, right? So our training is you return that call, that inquiry within 15 minutes. And honestly, I reckon that's probably even pushing it these days. Because, Jackson, you and I both know, right? We've got a problem. We get on Google, we type clean in your knee, and we expect a response. Yesterday, preferably. Please, can I just, can someone just turn up to my home and solve my problem immediately without me even having to think about it? This is the market that we're working in, right? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people would wait for a call back. My dad, he's gorgeous. He will wait hours, days for a call back. I won't. I absolutely won't. And most people these days won't. So look, that is where I see probably the biggest mistakes being made, right? It's in the detail of how you deal with a service and it's understanding your market. They want a quick response. They want authenticity and transparency. They want you to be open and honest with them. They want you to show up when you say that you're going to show up. Deliver what you say you're going to deliver. If you tell them when you show up to do their quote that you're going to wash this window, it needs to be documented in the quote, and then you need to wash that window. It all needs to be done exactly in line with the expectations they have. If you've got time up your sleeve, do the quote and then do the job. If you can't do it right then and there, come back the next day, schedule the time as close to that initial inquiry as possible. Because if you're not servicing quickly, someone else is servicing that customer for you and you've lost them. And guess what you've also lost, right? In the services sector, 80%, in fact, more than 80% of the work our network completes is recurring work. It's people wanting a cleaner every week, every fortnight, or their pet groomed every 6 weeks, or their lawns mowed every 3 weeks. You miss that 15-minute callback, somebody else gets it. Okay, you could just pat yourself on the back and say, look, I was busy. I've missed this one. It's fine. I'll get the next one. Look, it was probably only a lawn mow. It was probably only a couple $100, garden tidy, lawn mow, whatever. Doesn't matter. No, hang on a minute. If they actually want you to deliver that service every fortnight, that's 26 jobs you've missed in the next 12 months.
Crazy.
Now start adding that up, right? It adds up so quick. You've got to take responsibility for the outcomes in your business. Franchise networks are great. They do all the hard work for you. We've got all these systems and processes, all these tools, all this training, all this marketing, all this support, all this coaching, everything that you could need, right? You said earlier, it's a business in a box, and it absolutely is, but you're the person opening that box. And if you're not ready to show up, if you're not ready to take responsibility, then you're not going to see outcomes in your business. No matter how good we set your business up to be, no matter how well we train you, you've got to take it on board. You've got to take ownership. You've got to do it. You've got to show up every day. You've got to put the work in.
This is great advice. I know from my own experience, when I was involved in a franchise group for a very long time, we were very much reliant on head office and their marketing. And through some tough times, the head office cut their significant marketing budget to basically nothing, and leads dried up. It was a horror story at the time, but it was the best gift because I learned how to fish for myself and leverage the tools and the brand and the systems and the frameworks in order to feed myself and not have to be kind of hands out waiting for the head office to feed me. And one of the powers of that process is the power of the follow-up. I don't know if this happens with you at your side of Cairns. I'm on the other side of Cairns. I'm a little bit further out of town. But getting tradies to even send me quotes or come out is terrible. And the power of the follow-up of somebody just giving me a call because I'm busy, we're all busy, to just reaffirm and book it in would mean the difference between not getting the job and getting it. So you hit the nail on the head. You can have all of these systems, but they're only as good as your ability to leverage them and use them and implement them in your business. So makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. We have our training manual. It focuses so much on that follow-up. And we spend a lot of time focusing on just how important follow-up is, because I'm actually stepping through the process of building a house right now. So I have first-hand experience of working in the construction industry. There are loads of challenges for our construction industry right now, but the number of times you just don't get that follow-up, or they don't send through the quote, or it's weeks before you hear from them. And you know what? I'm the type of person that, I'm young enough to be pretty cutthroat when it comes to this. But if you haven't actually followed through on what you told me you were going to do, I'm going to find someone else. Even if your price is good, even if your service is good, I'm going to cut you. I'm going to go and use somebody else because you didn't deliver what you said you were going to deliver. So if that is my first experience of dealing with you, what about then when I'm sitting in my home waiting for you to show up to do the actual job? What then? Or what happens if I need to call you back for something a couple of weeks later? What then? I don't know what to expect because you haven't set good expectations and standards right from the get-go. So look, it's something that we really focus on with our business owners. It's, return the call in 15 minutes, right? Get on top of that, but follow up diligently. And we keep saying so often to our new business owners, this will be the difference between you nailing it in this industry and between you just plateauing after you reach, a certain level and you're comfortable. You've got to keep pushing. And the follow-up is so important. People lead busy lives. They forget to get back to you on your quotes. Business owners sometimes say, oh, yeah, I sent that a couple of days ago. No, they're busy. They'll come back to me. No, they won't. They've already gone with the other person because the other person was quicker on the follow-up than you were.
Back on. I love it. Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the franchise offering at James's Home Services, Rhiannon. you're very innovative in regards to the way that you guys have structured this, because I've seen plenty of different franchise offers that have pretty significant upfront costs, which become a large barrier to entry for people to get started. And it can slow people down. Talk to us a little bit about the value proposition and how you guys have decided to structure it, and also a little bit of the rationale behind it.
So I talked earlier about, the industry as a whole spending 2 years unpacking the challenges of COVID. We spent about 6 months unpacking the challenges, and then we started looking for opportunity and acting. Something that we saw in the market of potential franchisees was that we were getting great volumes of inquiry off the ads we were running and off the, the strategies that we were engaging to attract that inquiry for new franchisees. And we were getting really great quality candidates. Our ideal franchisee was inquiring with us. However, they were making it a certain way through our sales process, and then they were dropping out. And so, we had some pretty harsh conversations with ourselves around why is this happening? And of course, initially your thought process is, okay, well, something's going wrong in the sales process. So we benchmarked our sales process against some of the largest franchises in the country and globally and what their sales process is. And we follow a best practice sales process, right? We might be just a home services franchise network selling a relatively low entry franchise, but our process is on point. So then the question becomes far more fundamental. Is what you're selling wanted by the market, right? First question in business, every single business owner should ask themselves this question every single day. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, what business you're in. Does the market want what you're selling? Specifically, exactly what you're selling, your current value proposition. Do they want it, right? Does the market want to be their own boss? Yes. It is part of the quintessential Aussie dream. I want to own my own backyard with a barbecue, with some cricket pitches, or with a cricket pitch, and I want to be my own boss. I want to flip the bird to the guy I've been working for the last 2 decades, and I want to be my own boss. We all want it, right? All of us.
Yes.
At some point, I've been an employee all my life, but at some point, we've all thought about it, And so we knew the answer to that first fundamental question was a big fat yes. So then the second question you have to ask yourself is, why is it not converting to growth in our network? Why are we not seeing sales? Why are we not seeing people? If people want what we're selling, why are they not buying it? You have to look for the roadblocks. We found 2 really significant ones, right? The first one was that as a society now, we have been conditioned not to part with money up front. Think Afterpay. Think, I will never actually buy a car outright in my entire life because I can loan. I will never own a phone outright in my life because I can put it on a plan. It used to be several decades ago, the only thing that you loaned money for really was a house. Now it's everything, right? And it's not even just a loan anymore. We're getting clever. We're offering subscription models and we're delayed payment opportunities. A lot of people won't even buy clothes from a clothing boutique up front, right? You chuck it on Afterpay, 4 easy payments. We all know the drill.
Yeah.
We have been conditioned not to want to part with money up front anymore because now it's seen as a risk. Why would I part with money up front? It's leaving my bank account when I could leave it in my bank account, sort of test the waters, test the product, and then make a decision later on. It feels less risky. It feels less like a big decision. So people don't want to part with money up front, even though we are a low entry cost network. It cost under $30,000 to get into our network at full price. It still was a barrier, particularly to the demographic that we were aiming for. The second thing that was a roadblock was, I've said a million times, a couple of decades ago, franchises were revered and celebrated. Now, not so much, right? And one of the biggest challenges we found was we have a 5-year term to our franchise agreements, which is not significant in the scheme of things. There are other networks out there with decade-long terms and more.
Yeah.
So 5 years is not a big deal, but to our particular market, it really was, right? So 2 things. Hang on a minute, I don't want to part with my money up front. What do you mean? And the second thing was, I don't want to be tied into anything, right? So the 2 kind of go hand in hand. So we knew the market wanted what we sold. We had uncovered what the barriers for making that happen was, and then we had to fix it, right? And it bred a really innovative solution, an Australian first, and indeed we believe a world first, in a subscription model for business ownership. So instead of paying $30,000 up front to buy a franchise, you pay $1,000 up front, and then you pay $100 a week for your business. And that gets you started in business. Your franchise fees are also due and payable. as in every franchise network, there are franchise fees, but that buying your business component has been changed entirely, right? No longer do we need 30 grand from you up front. We need $1,000 and then we need $100 a week from you. And if you don't have your own equipment and you need us to provide it, then it's slightly more than $100. It's $125 in cleaning business, for instance. So we just wildly flipped the table on our model, which is slightly scary, also really exciting, and actually mostly exciting, because you know what it does is it opens up the door for business ownership to people who just never thought it would have been possible, right? All these people sitting at their desks, tapping away, thinking, am I really going to stay here forever doing this? But they don't have the capital to go out and either do it on their own or buy their business. And they also don't have the skills to go out and do it on their own, right? This blows the door wide open. This changes the way we think about franchising in this country. This changes the way we think about how we get people started in business in Australia.
This is really powerful. My business partner coined the term make money with clients, not from clients. And I think this is the epitome of this, right?
Yeah.
That you remove the barriers. And it was one of the things I always questioned, like, why is there such this hefty upfront fee, particularly when, like, I understand if you've got a McDonald's or something like that, right? And there's a fit out and there's all of these other things that are associated with it. But for others where there's not necessarily a lot of upfront cost, there's this big lump sum. And sure, there's a heaps of value in the IP and the systems and the initial support and whatnot. However, it's that big barrier that stops people from getting a foot in the door. So credit to you guys for implementing this and removing those barriers. And I'm sure it's going to bear a lot of fruit in the years to come.
Yeah, we really hope so. And we're seeing some pretty incredible results already. We saw the rate of inquiry who were non-contactable, like almost disappeared overnight. We saw the average age of our inquirer pretty much halve overnight.
Wow.
And some other really incredible outcomes that, we hypothesised would occur, but it's really amazing to actually see them coming to fruition. But more than anything, honestly, the best feedback we're getting from people is, when they've seen our subscription model and they've inquired based on it, the story we get about, oh my goodness, we've been wanting to get into our own business for years. We just don't know. We didn't know how. We didn't have the money. We've been trying to save. This is our dream. Oh my goodness, this is now possible. Like, honestly, it gets you out of bed every single morning, no matter what you've got on your plate for that day. It makes you so grateful to get to do what you do, because you get to empower people to achieve their dreams. And I know that sounds corny, right? But it's so true. You really, we've got brand new franchisees in our network who are absolutely smashing it. Like, a couple of weeks in, already looking for staff. A couple of weeks in, just slaughtered by leads and inquiries coming in, and guys too that we are following up with and continuing to train and mentor, and they're just getting it. They're getting, know your market, know your customer, pay attention to the details, stay on top of your finances. They are just killing it. And if we hadn't been offering the subscription model, they wouldn't have been doing this. They would have still been sitting tapping at a computer doing something for somebody else. So how incredible that something that we've been able to bring to fruition is changing the lives of people who have always wanted to be a business owner, and now it's possible for them.
Beautiful. That's what it's all about. That's fantastic. So we're in some turbulent times here, Rhiannon. I don't think we can kid ourselves by saying anything otherwise. Obviously, inflation is an issue. Interest rates are increasing. There's some fundamental challenges that we're going to need to navigate as business owners over the course of the coming years. So if you had to distill your sage advice to home services businesses, whether they be running their own business, in a franchise, what would your advice be to navigate the future?
Yeah. Number one, understand your business costs. Most people don't. Most people think that their business costs are insurance, fuel to go in their vehicle. They're not. You're kidding yourself if you think that you're in a small business and those are your only business costs. We've got tools and spreadsheets that actually step our franchisees through identifying every single business cost they have. And it really helps them to understand why they need to charge, what they need to charge in order to plan for that profit we talked about earlier. So understanding the business cost is critical, because if we're continuing to see our own cost of living rising, then at some point we need to be realistic about what it's costing us to run a business, and therefore what we are worth in our time. Let me tell you, if you're out there working as a cleaner or a lawn and garden care person and you're working for $30 or $35 an hour, what are you doing? You are worth so much more than that. And what that indicates to me is that you don't understand the true cost of actually running a professional service-based business. So yeah, my biggest tip, I mean, there's 1,000, right? There's 1,000 tips you and I can give for people in small business to navigate the challenges of the next decade. But let's start with the basics. Understand your business expenses, because that then allows you to make sure that you're charging what you need to be charging so that you can plan for that profit in your business, because it's that profit that links you to financial freedom in the future. So it starts right back at just understanding expenses, but it flows all the way through to where you see yourself in 10, 20 years' time, on a beach somewhere, hopefully.
Love it. Sipping rum out of a coconut or something nice.
Too good to be true.
Love it. So, Rhiannon, this has been so much value. We've covered so much in such a small amount of time. So if somebody's listening to this and they're interested to learn more about the James Home Services business, how they could potentially look into becoming a franchisee, where do they go? How do they find out more info?
Super simple. Jump onto our website, jameshomeservices.com.au. There's a page specifically for Become a Franchisee. If you submit an inquiry, we are real people at the end of this business. We are real people who get your inquiry and who return your call. If you submit an inquiry, you will receive a call from Justin, who is our sales manager and one of the owners of the business. So, and he will step you through the process. He will answer all of your questions, throw him the hard ones, give him some good ones, make him work for it. But no, that's the easiest way to reach out. Our website has loads of information. We also have a YouTube channel, which has got some really great informational videos specifically on our subscription model, because what we found is that people approach it with a little bit of trepidation. Initially, there was this really great excitement and response to it, and now people are kind of like, hang on a minute, it sounds too good to be true, right? So we're now working through that challenge, right? One of our own challenges is actually convincing people, no, we've got more skin in the game than any other franchise network in the country in offering this model, because there is the opportunity in the marketplace for the home services sector right now, and because we believe in the power of business ownership to change lives, and we want to be an enabler for that. It's that simple.
I love it. This has been amazing. Look, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing all of your wisdom through your business career, for franchise, for small business. I'm really hoping that a lot of this stuff can be implemented to deliver some amazing results. And just remember, guys, a good idea in theory remains exactly that, just a good idea until you put it into place. So make sure that you implement and focus on progress over perfection. Rhiannon, thanks again for making the time, and looking forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jackson. It's been a pleasure.